Today, we are going to discuss about communication and globalization. What is communication? Communication is the process of exchanging information, ideas and knowledge from one person to another. Communication is the foundation of all human relationship. At first, strangers start talking and getting to know each other, and then the relationships are formed when they have more interaction and communication. Communicating helps people to express their ideas and feelings, and at the same time, helps us to understand emotion and thoughts of the others. Communication plays a vital role in human life. It not only helps to facilitate the process of sharing information and knowledge, but also helps people to develop relationships with others. Therefore, the importance of communication cannot be underestimated. Every day, we communicate with a lot of people, including our families, our friends, our colleagues, or even strangers. We should learn how to communicate effectively to make our lives better. What does globalization mean? Globalization is the increasing economic, political, and cultural integration and interdependence of diversity cultures, the worldwide integration of humanity. Globalization means increasing the interdependence, connectivity and integration on a global level with respect to the social, cultural, political, technological, economic and ecological levels. Globalization is a process of interaction and integration among the people, companies, and governments of different nations. A process driven by international trade and investment and aided by information technology. This process has effects on the environment, on culture, on political systems, on economic development and prosperity, and on human physical well-being in societies around the world. Globalization mainly deals with the interconnectedness of the people in a global manner. Globalization has helped the people to be updated with each and every happenings of the world. The thoughts and ideas of individuals now work in wider perspective. Globalization has made way for free trade and business and has communication between various parts of the globe. It has potential to make this world a better place to live in. There are effects of globalization. Goods and people are transported with more easiness and speed. The possibility of war between the developed countries decreases. Free trade between countries increases. The global common market has a freedom of exchange of goods and capital, and the world becomes more accessible and equitable in general. It is claimed that globalization increases the economic prosperity and opportunity in the developing world. The civil liberties are enhanced and there is a more efficient use of resources. All the countries involved in the free trade are at a profit. As a result, there are lower prices, more employment and a better standard of life in these developing nations. Global mass media connects all the people in the world. The communication between the individuals and corporations in the world increases. Because of technologies like the internet, we have the opportunity to view diverse perspectives that were outside of our scope before. We are able to fully connect with someone who is thousands of miles away in real time. Globalization has introduced virtual communication and collaboration as a major part of workplace dynamics. What is intercultural communication? Intercultural communication refers to the communication between people from two different cultures. It is communication between individuals and groups of different cultural backgrounds. In business, this involves understanding different professional norms, beliefs, perceptions and mentalities, and communication strategies. Everything from language, gestures, mannerisms, customs, and systems of power and authority can differ between cultures. Fundamental assumptions about intercultural communication. First assumption. The message sent is usually not the message received. When two speakers from different cultures interact, their values, emotions, perceptions, and behaviors greatly affect the interpretation of their messages. Whenever people from different cultures come together and exchange messages, they bring with them a whole host of thoughts, values, emotions, and behaviors that were planted and cultivated by culture. This process of encoding, decoding, and interpreting is filled with cultural noise. To this extent, all intercultural exchanges are necessarily, to a greater or lesser extent, charged with ethnocentrism. Even when two people are speaking the same language, cultural differences can affect vocabulary, colloquial expressions, voice tone, and taboo topics. Second assumption. A nonverbal act between individuals. Since it is said that intercultural communication is a nonverbal procedure where articulation of power, intimacy, and status being combined with paralinguistic cues, proxemics, haptics, oculesics, and olfactics. Some researchers have suggested that as much as 90% of all communication is nonverbal. Cultural values, the expression of intimacy, power, and status and among communicators is typically accomplished nonverbally through paralinguistic cues, proxemics, haptics, oculesics, and olfactics. Paralinguistics are the aspects of spoken communication that do not involve words. These may add emphasis or shades of meaning to what people say. Examples are body language, gestures, facial expressions, tone, and pitch of voice are all examples of paralinguistic features. Proxemics is a theory of nonverbal communication that explains how people perceive and use space to achieve communication goals. It is how space and distance influence communication. Haptics is a form of nonverbal communication using a sense of touch. The sense of touch allows one to experience different sensations. Communicating through nonverbal haptics involves handshake, pat, kiss, slap, hug, massage, hit, kick, embrace, tickle, etc. Each touch communicates a unique message like fear, disgust, love, encouragement, gratitude, sympathy, anger, pain, violence, etc. Moreover, haptic communication depends on environment and interpretations such as on who, why, when, and differs with setting and purpose as professional, friendship, guide, punishment, sympathy, arousal, attention, greeting, seeking, and so on and so forth. Oculesics refers to the study of eye contact and pupil dilation in terms of nonverbal communication. Eye contact indicates interest, openness, and sometimes even arousal, though aggressive eye contact or staring can be interpreted as a sign of hostility. In addition to this, lack of eye contact also transmits a message, oftentimes that the listener is bored and or is not paying attention. It must be noted that culture plays a role in oculesics. Olfactics involves communicative functions associated with the sense of smell, such as body odors, use of perfumes, etc. Sense and use of smell. Different cultures like different smells and use smell differently. For example, some cultures try to cover up all bodily smells and some cultures feel they are natural and should not be covered up. Third assumption is involvement of style in communication among speakers. There are communication gaps and only wisdom tells us whether to speak or not. Interpretation of silence differs from across cultures. Many cultures, however, prefer an indirect and impersonal communication style. In these cultures, there is no need to articulate every message. True understanding is implicit, coming not from words but from actions in the environment where speakers provide only hints or insinuations. Fourth assumption is group phenomenon experienced and shared by individuals. Communication is subject to the speaker's background and knowledge. In other words, we have a tendency to see others not as individuals with unique thoughts, ideas, and goals, but rather than as an Asian, or a woman, or an old person or a cab driver. We do not see the person, we see the groups to which the person belongs. That's why people must not prejudge a person just because this individual is associated to a specific group. When this happens, miscommunication cannot be avoided. During intercultural communication, we have to be mindful that while the person with whom we are interacting is from a different cultural group, he or she is also an individual. Whenever we interact with a person from a different culture, we carry with us assumptions and impressions of that other person. The specific verbal and nonverbal messages that we exchange are usually tailored for the person based on those assumptions and impressions. Oftentimes such assumptions and impressions are based on characteristics of the other person by virtue of his, her membership in groups such as his, her culture, race, sex, age, and occupation group. Lastly, the fifth assumption is a cycle of stress and adaptation. It is normal to feel anxious, apprehensive and uncertain when one mingles and speaks to another person from a different culture. It is important to be flexible and adapt a communication style to be able to make the other individual comfortable. Being able to recognize that people from various cultures are different is really an advantage. This will lead the speaker to adjust the verbal and nonverbal symbols appropriately to the individual from another culture. When we come together with a person from a different culture, we may feel uncertain, apprehensive, and anxious. Such feelings are stressful. We can learn and adapt to such stress and eventually grow. During intercultural communication, we have to be mindful that the communication strategies we use with persons with whom we are familiar may not be effective with persons from other cultures. Thus, we have to learn to adapt and adjust our communication style.